Right then, Mark chapter 7 and verse 34 is where I will start off today. We are in the third part of Jesus' amazing ministry in Galilee. If you would like, you can call it his great Galilean ministry. That maybe makes it easier to remember because of the G's. We are in the third part of that amazing ministry of Jesus in Galilee. This is also the last part of his ministry in Galilee. Since his public ministry lasted for approximately 3.5 years, we can debate on the plus or minus. We are somewhere almost toward the 3-year mark of his public ministry. And from this time on, a lot happens, leading to the passion of Christ. Sometime in July, maybe July 16th, we'll be finishing this Galilean ministry, and then now Jesus will be headed to Judea in Jerusalem, where he'll have that great confrontation with the Jewish leaders during Passover from John chapter 7, and he will say a lot of things about himself being the shepherd, the good shepherd, about him being the light of the world, and that will set him up for the events that come. He had left Jerusalem and Judea because of increasing hostility with religious leaders. We saw that last year when we began. And so he decided, instead of setting up his ministry headquarters in Jerusalem, to move and go to Capernaum in Galilee, where there was less hostility with the religious leaders. Nonetheless, as was read in verse 24, here are the religious leaders. They have followed him all the way from Jerusalem after they have heard of his fame and the great things that they have done, possibly at the invitation of the Pharisees who are in Capernaum. And now they have come to attack him right where he is, in the regions of Galilee, somewhere around Capernaum. And so, as we saw last week, he rebuked the Pharisees for their hypocrisy, and then he told us about the issue. The issue is not about ritual purity. It was not an issue of ceremonial uncleanliness. It was not an issue of washing of hands before eating and all those outward things that people do, thinking that it will earn them internal holiness and righteousness. The issue is actually the heart. And so from there, verse 24, Jesus arose and he went to the border coasts of Tyre and Sidon. I had prepared a map, and then I forgot it on my computer. So next week, God willing, I will come with it and try and show you, although some of you may already know where the regions of Tyre and Sidon are. If you're carrying a physical Bible like mine, you likely have maps behind your back, which can be able to give you a mental idea of where that is. But if, say, Judea is to the south, and Samaria is somewhere in the central area, and Galilee is to the north, and Jesus is somewhere here in Capernaum, he goes somewhere up north to the regions of Tyre and Sidon, a region called Syria, a Syria-Phoenician region. Then after coming from this region, he comes this way back to the Sea of Galilee and the regions of Decapolis, which is what we will look at next week. But my fingers cannot illustrate that very well. I feel a map should be able to do that quite clearly. Nonetheless, he went to the border coasts, we are told in verse 24, of Tyre and Sidon. And he left because his popularity had increased greatly and confrontations had also increased significantly. He did not have many places left to go because Jesus did not want war or fighting with the religious leaders of the day. And so he went to those regions. He got into a house quietly. He did not want anybody to know it. Did you see that in verse 24? He did not want anybody to know it. He just wanted a place that was quiet, a place that was silent. But the Bible tells us that he could not be hidden. It was not possible that he could be hidden. Which house, I wonder, did he go into? Whose house did he go into? Was it a house at random? Was it a house belonging to someone he knew? We don't know. We are not told. We're just told he was in the house. Just like Godfrey prayed and said, we are in the house of the Lord. Jesus is right here with us. Jesus is right where you are as a believer by his Spirit. You don't need to go out looking for him. You don't need to look for some special place with some special presence of God. If you are a believer, his presence abides in you. And wherever you are, there he is. But he goes into a house and he wants to be alone with his disciples. And he wanted no one to know, but he could not escape notice. He had become very famous as a miracle worker. He had become very famous as a special teacher, as a teacher who taught with special clarity and amazing lessons with stories and things that were very relatable to the audience of his day. Jesus himself said in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 14, talking to his disciples, he told them, "You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden." Here we see from the example of the same Jesus who said those words that he cannot be hidden. Wherever you as a Christian go, it's very hard for people not to know that you are there. Our lights should shine. We know that song, "Let your light shine." So while he was there was a certain woman who came to see him. This woman has no name. She was likely a widow. She is unnamed. She could represent any woman, any man. Her name is not given. And this reminds us of, remember when you looked at the centurion's servant in Mark chapter 5 and verse 22 to verse 23. Jairus' daughter in Mark chapter 5 and verse 22. We are told that there came one of the rulers of the synagogue. He was called Jairus. And when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. And Jesus besought Jairus greatly, saying, "My little daughter lies at the point of death. I pray, please come and lay your hands on her so that she may be healed, and she shall live." And Jesus went with him. So in a similar way, this woman comes to Jesus. Her daughter had an unclean spirit. She had heard of Jesus, and she comes to look for a solution. We are told in verse 26 that this woman was Syro-Phoenician by race. That's what your version may say. Another version may say Syro-Phoenician by birth in verse 26. Another version may say Syro-Phoenician by nation, by race. Today there is big talk of race issues as if they are new issues. These are issues that have always been there. Racism has always been a sin, and it has always existed, and it will always be there until Jesus comes to set all things right. So here is a race issue, a Syro-Phoenician and someone from the Jewish community is going to see her. How shall this thing end? How shall this issue be resolved? Matthew tells us that the woman was a Canaanite woman from the region of Syria, Phoenicia. Now, the Syria Phoenicians were a subgroup of the Canaanites. Do you remember anything about Canaanites? If you've read Genesis, you may remember that that is the very same place where God promised Abraham and his descendants that he will give them land. And he had to kick out all of those people who were worshiping other gods, pagan gods, idols, so that he can give his people the promised land. So they were Israel's, so to speak, arch enemies, like the Philistines, these people from Syria in Phoenicia. Like the Jews, they were Semites, and they spoke a similar but not same language. This is why Jesus was easily able to converse with the woman. And so, Jesus goes to that area. Some people might have called that taboo, that Jesus, a Jew, should not step in that place. But, who is Jesus? He went to other places where there were people who were considered outside the promises of God, outside the covenant. And he did amazing things in those areas. But when he went to Syria, Phoenicia, there were also Jews who lived in that place, and they needed to hear about the Messiah. Going to a Gentile area, Jesus fulfills the scripture about his messianic mission, extending to them, the Gentiles, and even making way for all people to be able to believe in him. There was a servant of a centurion whose servant was healed, and some people say this was the first time that Jesus went to a Gentile area, and I think maybe because some people say that the centurion was likely a Jewish proselyte, someone who was a Gentile and had converted to Judaism, maybe. Nonetheless, he's a centurion, so that was not the first time that he went there. This is actually the second time when he goes to those regions. So look at this in verse 26. While Jesus was there, he met this woman. The woman came to him. I want you to notice 8 things from this woman, from the example of this woman. 8 things. The first one is desperation. The woman was desperate. We are told that she cried to Jesus. She lifted up her voice when she saw Jesus, and this is a cry of pain and of anguish and of desperation. She cried to Jesus. Her situation was desperate. Her daughter was demon-possessed. In fact, the woman says, "My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon." The demon is more powerful than the woman. The demon is more strong than the woman. And the woman knows that the enemy that is standing in front of her is a very strong enemy. The woman is so desperate, she doesn't care about the fact that she's a Gentile coming to a Jew. She comes. It talks of her desperate situation. Sometimes people have these kinds of situations in their lives. Sometimes maybe you've even come to church on Sunday and you have said, "I'm going to go to church on Sunday and meet with other believers because I know God has an answer for me in the difficult situation which I am facing. I have tried to solve it by my own ability. I have reached out to others and I have asked them to help me. I have found no help. I've gone to doctors and scientists. I've gone to pastors. I have gone to family. I have gone to friends. I have read books. I know when I go to the presence of the Lord on Sunday, gathered there with his people on Sunday, that the Lord will hear me and the Lord will answer me." And you may have come in such kind of a desperate manner. The woman was desperate, number one. Number two, notice also presentation. Presentation. How did she present herself to Jesus? She said, "Have mercy on me." Have mercy on me. What is mercy? We can define it in many ways, even describe it in many ways. We can use synonyms like compassion and so on. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. I've always thought that is the simplest definition of mercy. Not getting what I deserve. And grace is always getting what we don't deserve. Mercy. The woman said, "Have mercy on me." If you are employed somewhere by someone, and at the end of the month you are given some salary, some wages, some money comes into your bank account, do you deserve the money? Yes. If you have worked the entire month, you've worked hard, you've been faithful, you deserve it. If you own a business, and you have a business partner or it's a sole proprietorship, and then there is profit at the end of the month, the quarter, the year, do you deserve the profit? Yes. You have worked for it. You have labored for it. If you are in school and you have gotten good grades at the end of your exam, and you have worked hard for it, you have not used ChatGPT to get your answers. Teachers, sorry, you have this thing to battle with in the next coming years. Thankfully, as a pastor, the Bible remains as it is. I know there's nothing there to fake, but maybe I can be able to come up with a sermon from ChatGPT. Hey, ChatGPT, give me sermons from Mark chapter 7. And then I don't have to work the whole week, all of these hours digging into the text and exegesis and all those things. Nonetheless, if you're a student and you have worked faithfully and you deserve your marks, you feel, yes, I deserve it, right? You deserve it. Now, if you're a student and at the end of the term, you've worked hard and the teacher gives you 92 instead of 90 and you have 2 extra points, do you deserve them? Not really. You're supposed to get 90. That's what you deserve. That is equity. Or is it equality? Can debate that later. If you are employed somewhere, and at the end of the month, you're supposed to be paid 100,000 Uganda shillings, and the employer comes and gives you 150,000 Uganda shillings, do you deserve the extra 50,000? No. The employer has just said, from the abundance of my heart, here is an extra 50. If I gave you 100, that would have been enough for you. And so on and so forth. Mercy is not getting what we deserve. If you have a proper view of yourself as a human being, if you have a proper view of yourself as a person, you know that the salvation that God has given you, you don't deserve. You know that the good things that God has brought your way, if you really sat down with soberness and thought about it, you would feel, I don't deserve it. Sometimes you may even contrast your situation to other people's situations and think, what did I do to deserve what I have? What did those people do that they don't have the privileges and the benefits that I have? Then you will narrow it down to, I have received mercy from God. I have not gotten what I deserve. Sometimes you may think about your sins as well. And when we normally number our blessings and count our blessings, if you go today and write down your sins, if you are a husband and wife and I give you a piece of paper and I say, hey, husband, hey, wife, take that piece of paper and go and write on one side all the things that you love about your husband and they have done for you. You may write maybe 5 things. And write all the things that he has done to you that are not right or you don't like them. You will find 50 things to write, contrasted to the 5. So if you were to number your sins, there would be so many. On one side of the paper, on the other side of the paper, you would only write one thing: mercy. That's why I am here today, mercy. You look at the list and you think, how do I even deserve to be breathing and living and with all the privileges that I have today? Mercy is not getting what we deserve. That's what the woman prays for. She says, Lord, have mercy on me. There was a show that I saw on one of the local television stations in the country where I come from. And the show was called Command Your Morning. And I thought, why would someone name a show like that, Command Your Morning? Sometimes I listen to people praying and they say, I speak such and such on such and such a person or such and such a thing. I command such and such on such a person or thing. I decree, I declare, I speak. I don't know what other words are used. So I internalize it and I think, can I find this? Is it consistent with the scriptures? Then, for example, I start reading the book of Psalm. Immediately you start reading of Psalm, you find one theme that runs through it: mercy. There's a book called The Prayers of the Bible. It details all the prayers that are there in the Bible, even very simple prayers and how they were answered. It's an amazing compilation by one of the historical writers. And if you read that entire book, you will never find anyone who ever prayed like that. I speak, I command, I decree, I declare, I command you morning, I command you evening, I do so and such a thing. But the theme of mercy, have mercy on me. God, help me. God, save me. God, deliver me. It's an attitude of humility. You will find it running throughout Scripture. So I wondered, is it a case of traditions? We looked at traditions last week. Sometimes you have heard people pray in a certain way, or you have heard things explained in a certain way, and so you carry that on. Now someone will attack me and say, this is not comfortable with me. But Godfrey prayed and said, may your word rebuke us so. You can accept the rebuke. And I know I am right on this because I have scoured the scriptures. And I have looked at it. And I have looked at the people who came to Jesus. They never said, Jesus, I command you to heal me. Never said that. They said, please have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. And she says, oh Lord, Son of David. Some people have suggested that Jesus was offended because this woman called him Lord, Son of David. This woman addressed Jesus by his messianic titles, yet she was a Gentile. And they have said, no wonder Jesus was so hard on her in this text, in the things that Jesus said to her. I am not convinced by that. Maybe one day I will, but I am not. I understand there is a sense where that kind of statement can be inappropriate. For example, if I pledged my allegiance to the president of Uganda, that would be inappropriate to me. He's not my president. He's allowed me to live in his country, which I'm grateful, but I pledge my allegiance to the president of the Republic of Kenya. If you are a Ugandan and you pledge your allegiance to the president of the Republic of Kenya, it's absurd. Because he is not your president. You respect him, you pray for him, yes, you are grateful for him and all these things. So there is a place for that. It can be inappropriate. But I don't think Jesus was displeased by a gentle woman from Canaan addressing him by his messianic titles. So desperation, presentation. She presents herself like that. Have mercy on me. That determination. The woman is persistent. She's persistent. The words used there are she besought. She begged, your version may say. She kept asking. It reminds us of Matthew chapter 7 and verse 7. Ask and you will receive. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. For whoever asks, they will receive. And the tense used there is continuous. Ask and keep asking. Seek and keep seeking. Knock and keep knocking. But Jesus, we are told by Matthew in Matthew chapter 15, Jesus answered her not a word. Jesus didn't say anything. So I wondered, why did Jesus do this? She doesn't say anything to this woman. When you're in a time of prayer and you're praying desperately for something, remember that? She's desperate. You're praying desperately for something. How do you know when to stop? How do you know when Jesus has said no? Because he answers prayers like that. We know that it's a basic teaching in Christianity. It is yes, no, or wait. How do you know when he has said no? You keep asking. You keep persisting. You keep begging. You keep telling God, have mercy on me or in this situation. Because you don't know the will of God at that time. Sometimes he says yes, and it's a good thing. But when you don't know, when you don't understand his answer yet, you keep asking like the woman did. Now, in normal circumstances, Jesus acts immediately. We have seen that Jesus has not turned anyone away. He's always moved with compassion. Being moved with compassion means he not only has the empathy with that person or that situation, Jesus also has the ability and the willingness to act. That is compassion, contrasted to our compassion. Sometimes we see someone or something and we have compassion in our hearts. We feel, oh, but we are not prepared to alleviate that problem. Or we are not willing, or we are not able. Jesus was all of this. He was prepared, he was willing, he was able. Yet in this case, he answered her not a word. Answered her not a word is given to us by Matthew when he is detailing this same account. In Jairus' case, Jesus went with him, but in this case, he answered her not a word. Is the woman determined enough? Are you determined enough? Are you persistent enough, if I may use that word? Number 4, not only desperation, presentation, determination, but number 4, irritation. Notice the irritation from the disciples. The disciples say, at least according to Matthew chapter 15, verse 23 to verse 25, the disciples say, send this woman away. Jesus, Banange, send this woman away. She keeps shouting at us. She's crying out after us. Sometimes you may feel like that when you're on the streets of Kampala and you're driving and there are those children on the streets. They are on your window. They are holding a baby. You have the compassion. I wonder, what can I do? Is this a hole too deep for me to be able to come out of? And I'm feeling, can someone just... Sometimes, oftentimes, many times, disciples of Jesus behave like that. Can someone just come and take these people away? The disciples do that. They don't like it. It is embarrassing. To make it worse, she's a Canaanite, Gentile, and she's a woman in the first century. Thank God for how far we have come with things to do with women empowerment and freedom for women. But in the first century, it wasn't so. It was not an ideal situation for the disciples. You know, there are things on earth that Jesus expects us as his disciples to resolve. In the case of the woman, Jesus was likely waiting to see the reaction of his disciples. Had they caught his heart? Had they understood his heart? And this is not the only case. Remember at the feeding of the 5,000? Jesus turns to Philip and the disciples, and he asks them, where shall we get enough food to feed all of these people? The following verse tells us Jesus knew he was just saying this to Philip to test him. God willing, next week we shall look at the feeding of the 4,000, and the disciples haven't gotten the lesson. Jesus asked them the very same thing. Where shall we get enough food to feed all of these people? We can't. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 26 and verse 11 that the poor you will always have. The poor you will always have. Thank God for many of you who I know personally, and others who may be listening, and others who are not here, who work for organizations and NGOs and places which support the poor and the needy and the destitute and the afflicted. Thank God for many of you who have taken them in your homes and as your own, who support them with food or school fees, social help, spiritual help, emotional help. It's the call of we, his disciples. We are his hands, we are his feet, we are his eyes, we are his ears. We carry his heart. So instead of being irritated, we should be imitators of Jesus. In place of irritation should be initiation of the same love and mercy that Jesus extended. So his disciples beg Jesus, please send her away. But Jesus replies and says to the disciples and the woman and others who may have been listening, I'm not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. When you read that, you wonder, Jesus, what are you doing? This is not consistent with your heart of who you are. Why would you say this? I mean, as we have seen in the past, Jesus has healed or set free Gentiles before. For example, the centurion's servant. Do you remember the Gadarene demoniacs? Nobody could go to that region. Jesus went with his disciples and he set those two men free from their demon possession. Why would he say this? I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And furthermore, where is Jesus? He's in Gentile region. It's like, again, me as a foreigner coming to this country and start abusing the country and the president and the people and the culture of the country and so on and so forth. You lovely, caring Ugandans would likely carry me on your shoulders, right? And throw me at the border at Busia and say, go back to your own home. We don't need you. And that would be right to do that. But Jesus is in Gentile territory. So the way we are to understand these words is that Jesus came first or primarily to the Jews. We know that God does not show partiality. We know Jesus is not without compassion. We know no one deserves God's blessings. Yet we also know that God made a covenant with Abraham in Genesis 12, in Genesis 15. Abraham, the father of the Jews. Remember when he sent the 70, he told them, go to the lost sheep of Israel. Don't go into any of the the Gentile territory or Samaritan territory. That's one way we can understand this. Another way is that Jesus was testing the disciples. How would they respond when what they knew was exclusive for them, salvation is of the Jews? The Messiah and the gospel was offered to their pagan, cursed, wicked enemy, the Canaanites. How would they respond? How do your children respond, if you have children, or your nephews or nieces or others? When you come bearing a gift, and there are 3 of them, and you give only 1. How do you respond as an adult? When you are praying for something, then when you turn right or left, the Lord refused to give you what you are praying for. but he's given the person on your right or on your left. Was testing the disciples, but he was also testing the woman's faith and the woman's resolve. How much does she really believe Jesus? How much does she want this? And sometimes God does that in your situations and in mine. It's a desperate, heavy situation. Listen, how much do you want it? How much do you want it? Whatever it is you're praying for. Heavily, and you've prayed for years. Mine is for my daughter to speak and just live a regular, normal life. So that even one day when we are dead, she can have a life. So that one day she can be married. I desperately want that. And I've wanted it for the past 15 years. How desperately do you want it? What is your resolve to get it? A healing? A salvation for someone? A resolution of a marital difficulty? A business that is failing? Whatever it may be, and a life of an issue that is spiritual, relational, or physical. Number 5. Not only desperation, presentation, determination, and the irritation of the disciples, but also adoration. And this is why it becomes very, very beautiful. The woman came and worshipped him. The woman ignores the disciples' reactions. She listens and respects Jesus' mission to the Jews. But to demonstrate her allegiance, to demonstrate the fact that her allegiance is no longer to the Syrian Phoenician gods, that she's a follower of Jesus, she worships Jesus. Worship can be explained in many ways, isn't it? You can use so many ways to define and describe it. Worship is why we are gathered today. We are gathered to worship and serve God. Worship for some people is Christian music. Worship for others is lifting hands or closing eyes. Worship. Worship for some people is a lifestyle. I believe that is very accurate. Worship according to Jesus in verse 7 and verse 8, which we looked at last week. Right worship has to do with knowing and teaching the commandments of God, a.k.a. His Word. Knowing them and teaching them and explaining them, not teaching for doctrines, the commandments of men. Jesus calls that vain worship. Worship for this woman means falling at the feet of Jesus. Verse 25. That's what she did. She fell at the feet of Jesus. Today we sang about falling before your throne. Falling before your throne in that song, Wonderful, Merciful Savior. And immediately I was thinking with my mind, where is the throne? Where should I fall? But then, of course, I should not think of it literally. It is when we come before God in worship, falling, being at the feet of Jesus. And this reminds us of who? Mary and Martha. In Luke chapter 10. Martha received Jesus into her house, and she had a sister called Mary, who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was cumbered about much serving. Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus. So the woman bowed in submission, in surrender, and in adoration. Number 6, not only adoration, but also supplication. The woman says 3 words. The woman says, Lord, help me. Help me, Lord. How long is the petition? 3 words. An address to God. Lord, help me. That's all. Now, sometimes when we go to pray, and it is right to do so, I'm not criticizing it, we go the long route. We start telling God a long story. What do I want? I want my daughter to speak, to live a normal life. Then I start a story from the time that I was saved. And I explain, and I know, Lord, and I stay there for 30 minutes. It's a good thing. Here is a woman. She doesn't go my long route. She just says, Lord, help me. Remember the tax collector in Luke chapter 18? He only said, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I don't have to tell you how much I've given in tithes and offering. I don't have to tell you all the things that I have done. But in Luke chapter 18 and verse 13, he says, be merciful to me, a sinner I don't deserve. Another example of a prayer that was made in humility. Lord, help me. You know what I think? It was the way that she said it. You can feel it in the text, reading it in the quietness of your closet. I can't bring it out now in the same way I felt it when I was reading it, but it was the way that she said it. It was the heart she said the words from. You know, even humanly speaking, when your child comes to you and says, Dad, Mom, help me, it would take a very cold heart not to be moved by those words. So here's Jesus, he said to her, and someone may think, here's the cold heart that you're talking about. Let the children first be filled, because it is not proper to take the children's bread and to throw it to the dogs. What is Jesus doing? Several things, but at least one, he's testing her persistence. Her persistence. You know, sometimes you may give up in prayer because it is logical to do so. Okay? We've seen all manner of specialists, and they have said, this is a diagnosis of the condition. It is impossible to treat the condition because of the nature of the condition. So logic tells you, by the way, that's true. Here is the diagnosis. Because of the nature of the diagnosis, it is impossible to treat it. In fact, there are even cases where this diagnosis has not been treated, for example. Logic. One may give up in prayer because of that. Now, what do these words mean? And why are dogs involved? And are you sure Jesus said these things? Were they added there by Mark to just annoy us? Now, the word used there, cast, or throw in verse 27, is a strong word. It means to dispose something far that you don't want near you. You just take it and you throw it away. The word is ekbalo. We have seen it in the past, haven't we? Where Jesus says, send forth, send out laborers. It's the same word. Children refers to the descendants of Abraham, the Jews, and the dogs definitely refers to the Gentiles. That's how the Jews would describe the Gentiles. Now, here we are in 2023. People spend a lot of time on their phones, on their computers, on their television, watching videos about dogs, isn't it? Don't you do that? Oh, that's a cute dog, that's a nice dog, it's a nice puppy, and so on and so forth. So much has changed over years. Hours and millions of hours and data bundles are spent watching cute videos about dogs. I see my girls doing it sometimes. In the year 23, not 2023, 23, in Israel, in Judea, in Perea, in Galilee, in Samaria, wherever else, and in the Palestine area, as it remains today in the Middle East, street dogs are despised, neglected, and uncared for. So much so that the Jews referred to pagan worshipping Gentiles as dogs. Number 7, humiliation, from which, in a way, we can derive the word humility. I'm talking about both. The woman answers and says, yes, truth, Lord. Yet the dogs under the table of the children's crumbs, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs which fall from their master's table. Yes, that human logic, it has to be thought out properly and biblically. Now, the words that was used there for dogs means abandoned, neglected, and cared for dogs. The word that this woman is using for dogs is a different word in the original language. It can only be translated to the same thing, dog. It's more of a house dog. The dog that you usually pet, or is it pat? We have this ongoing dispute between me and Victoria over years, whether we pat a dog or we pet a dog. I won't tell you which one uses which and which one uses the other, so that I do not show that I'm the one who could be wrong, which is most likely the case. Nonetheless, she refers to a house dog, one of those dogs that people love to keep in their homes, and it's really nice. It's some kind of a companion. We love dogs in modern day, here in Uganda at least, hopefully. Now, what does the woman, I can see a cat below my van. talking of cats and dogs. The word that the woman uses for dogs in this verse is a different word. It means a house dog. So what is the significance of that? The way people would eat then is they would have some kind of a central bowl with food. And then they would have bread on their hands for when they want to grab the food. You know, like when you go to one of those beautiful Eritrean, Ethiopian restaurants and you have to eat together. I can only eat together with my wife. If I go with other people, let everyone get their own plate, you know. It's not easy seeing someone. Anyway. There's a bowl in the center of the room. Then you take a piece of bread and you use it to get the food. So the crumbs that are left on your hands, you throw them to the dogs. It's the idea in this verse. The woman's resolve and lowliness is remarkable. There is no hint of pride. She knows she does not deserve it. She's nothing. She's nobody. She's a widow considered cursed because of her demon-possessed daughter. Her people are idolatrous. To use the words of Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 12, she is without Christ. She is an alien from the commonwealth of Israel. She is a stranger from the covenant of promise. She has no hope, and she is without God in the world. Does the woman know that? Yes, this is her past. This is her background. This is her reality. I am not among the lost sheep of the house of Israel. The woman knows that. And if it was you and me today, the moment Jesus said, let the children first be filled. It is not right to take the children's bread and cast it to the... If it was you and me, we would have taken offense. We would have been annoyed. And you say, no, I wouldn't have been annoyed. Well, think of it today. How many prayers have you made to God and He's refused to answer them, or answered them to other people, or answered them in the manner that you didn't want Him to answer, or He's, in a way, from your understanding, God is frustrating you. And at that point you say, God, you can even stay with whatever I don't need it any longer. Maybe God is testing faith and persistence. But the woman's resolve and lowliness is remarkable. So, number 8, resolution. Jesus answers in verse 29 and says to her, "Woman, great is your faith." Matthew is the one who captures those words. "Oh, woman, great is thy faith. And for this reason, go away." That's why I told the choir, please sing this song today. "Be it unto me according to your word." It's one of the several Don Moen songs that I really, really love. "Be it unto me, even according to your word." Great is your faith. This was the test. And often God takes us the long way to reveal our hearts. Do I really trust Him? Do I truly believe in Him? Do I really believe Jesus? Do I really want this? Do you really want it, whatever it is which I don't know? Do you really want it? Be it done for you as you desire, Jesus says. So the woman must have been what? Shocked. Do you think? No. It's the disciples who would have been shocked and ashamed. The woman must have been amazed at what Jesus has done. "It shall be done for you as you wish." And immediately her demon left. So you can imagine the jubilation, the joy, and the gladness in that home when she went back home again. The one who was demon-oppressed, demon-possessed is now free. Free. So Jesus left there, verse 31. And so He went near the Sea of Galilee, in the regions of Decapolis. What is Jesus doing? Is He running away? No, He wants privacy with His disciples. Will the scribes and the Pharisees and the multitude allow it? No. He goes there, they are following Him. He goes there, they are there. He now goes to, He even leaves that place where He had gone. He goes somewhere else. And so He goes there in Decapolis, He sits down. And He does not sit down so that the sick would be brought. He sits down just to enjoy the view. You think Jesus never used to enjoy the view. He only did spiritual things. He did a lot of spiritual things. He also did a lot of things that you and I do on a daily basis, such as just sitting down and feeling the fresh air, or riding His donkey, like He would drive your car somewhere, and feeling the air on your hair, if you have long hair, of course, which hopefully should not be blown away by the wind. So he's there resting. But as it is today, as it was then, many sick and harassed people were brought to him. Many people who were terminally ill and had severe diseases. So there was brought to him someone who was deaf and mute. These things usually go together. I've had the privilege of knowing Dave and his family who have a workshop in Buambo called Ideas Workshop. At the present time, he has how many deaf interns, Dave? 7 deaf interns. They take them for free. They train them in welding and carpentry. They present Jesus to them. Dave, how many of those 7 deaf interns have believed in Jesus? 7. Out of 7. Through him and the ministry, 7 dumb and mute people have come to faith in Jesus. These things go together, not hearing well and speaking with difficulty. So Jesus takes this man aside privately. The aim of Jesus is never to be dramatic or to be seen by people or to appear like a magician. His healing is always quiet, if possible. Today, healing and miracles are usually surrounded by cameras and posted on the website and so on. Look at how dramatic and how glaring that is. Oh, come and see me, I'm the one who did it. Jesus takes him away privately. And he does this to show the way of healing is his. He's the only one who has the proper ways of healing. Now, why does Jesus, what does verse 33 tell us? He put his fingers into his ears, and then he spit, and he touched his tongue. If you're carrying some other version, I won't mention version, it says, with his saliva. It actually adds those words to make sure that this is what the original writers meant. With his saliva, touched his tongue. Why does Jesus heal in this manner? You know, I believe it's to show that the way of healing is not always the same. It is to demonstrate that he is not limited in how he heals. Normally we think, I'm sure Jesus is going to come this way. But he may speak a word, he may go and see, he may touch. One may touch the hem of his garment. He may be told directly by the person or hear from another person. He may put fingers into the ears, spit, touch the tongue with saliva, and heal the person. And then Jesus looks up to heaven, praying to his Father. Heaven is where power comes from. As if to say, Father, this person who can't hear and speak properly, this one is among those who you have purposed to open. And immediately his ears were opened. Verse 35 says, the string of his tongue was loosed, the bond was removed, the impediment was taken away, and the man began to speak plainly. He not only started hearing, but the man also started speaking. And so Jesus, after doing these miracles, gave orders like he has done in the past. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. But the more he told them not to tell anyone, the more they published those news. The more he ordered them, the more they spoke about it. I believe he was telling them, don't go and tell the specifics of the healing. Okay? Because a dumb and a mute person starting to speak and hear properly, wouldn't that make national news? Wouldn't that make regional news? Why would he tell them, don't go and tell anyone? They don't even need to tell anyone. The news will just spread. So I believe Jesus is saying, don't say the specifics. But the more he ordered them, the more widely, the more zealously they proclaimed those news, and they continued to proclaim them. And I battled with the question, why did they never obey? Why did they never obey? Every time Jesus tells them, don't tell anyone, they do exactly the opposite. Was it excitement? Was it that joy that people have when they want to spread some good or bad news? Anyway, after all of these things, the healing and the being set free, everyone was utterly astonished, and they said, Jesus has done all things well. And those are beautiful, kind, worshipful words. He has done all things well. There is nothing he has not done well. Everything that Jesus does and has done, he does it and has done it well.